6 months after the trial, the galaxy had changed. New treaties were signed. Trade routes reopened. The Ghost Armada returned to the Oort cloud, but everyone knew they were there now. The secret was out. Humanity had teeth, and they weren't afraid to show them. Captain Lee Minho retired from merchant service. He couldn't go back to that life, not after everything that happened. Instead, President Kang Sora appointed him to a new position, director of the Una Lee Memorial Foundation. The organization's mission was to protect innocents throughout the galaxy and promote peaceful cooperation between species. The foundation's headquarters was built on Harmony's Gate Station, right next to his daughter's memorial. Minho worked there every day, helping to turn his grief into something positive. They set up education programs, cultural exchanges, and emergency response teams for species in need. "Your daughter would be proud," Ambassador Kim Taijin said during one of his visits. He was still humanity's representative to the Galactic Council, though the Council worked very differently now. "I hope so," Minho replied, looking out at the station's busy plaza. She wanted everyone to be friends. "We're trying to make that possible." The Galactic Council had restructured after the Kren incident. New laws protected innocents and civilian populations. Species that violated these laws faced immediate sanctions, backed by the knowledge that humanity would enforce them if necessary. The Council created an investigation branch to handle incidents before they escalated. Dr. Park Hana was appointed to lead the medical division of this new peacekeeping effort. She organized teams of doctors from multiple species who could respond quickly to humanitarian crises. It felt good to use her skills for healing again instead of just documenting tragedy. The Kren Empire continued its transformation. With their military power broken, they focused on rebuilding their economy and culture. A new generation of Kren grew up learning about the cost of their old ways. Schools taught about Una Lee and what happened when pride and violence went unchecked. Supreme Leader Corvin personally oversaw the changes. He knew his species needed to adapt or become irrelevant. "We were warriors for 3,000 years, he told his council. "Now we must learn to be something else, something better." Not all Kren accepted the new way. Some formed resistance groups, claiming their species had been humiliated and demanding revenge. But these groups found little support. Most Kren had seen enough of where that path led. Commander Thulrock sat in his cell on a human prison station. It was not cruel. Humans didn't believe in torture, but it was isolating. He had plenty of time to think about his actions. Sometimes he received letters from Kren citizens. Some cursed him. Some thanked him for teaching their species a necessary lesson. He answered none of them. One day he received an unexpected visitor. Captain Lee Minho stood outside the energy barrier of his cell. "Why are you here?" Thulrock asked. Minho was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. Maybe because hating you was consuming me. Maybe because I needed to see you as something other than a monster. I am what I am," Thulrock said. "I took your daughter from you." "No amount of remorse changes that." "No, it doesn't," Minho agreed. "But you know what? Una wouldn't want me to spend my life hating. She wanted people to understand each other, so I'm trying to understand. Help me, why did you do it?" Thulrock struggled to find words. "I was raised to see strength as the only virtue. Anything that challenged Kren authority was an insult that demanded response. Your daughter offered friendship when I expected submission. I reacted with violence because that's all I knew. And now I understand that strength without wisdom is just brutality. Your people proved they were stronger than us, but they didn't destroy us. They could have. We would have in their position. But they chose restraint. That taught me more than all my years of military service." Minho nodded slowly. "I won't say I forgive you. I can't, but I understand you better now. Maybe that's enough." He left without looking back. It wasn't closure, but it was something. A step toward healing. The Ghost Armada remained in the Oort cloud, but they weren't idle. Fleet Commander Nam Sunwoo organized training programs with allied species. The Torvin sent engineers to learn about human technology. The Vrel sent tactical officers to study human strategy. Even some younger Kren were allowed to participate, learning new ways of thinking about security and defense. "We're building something new," Nam Sunwoo explained to his officers. "Not an empire, not a conquest fleet, a peacekeeping force that represents multiple species. If we're going to enforce galactic law, we should do it together." Admiral Choi Demon approved the initiative. "It's smart. If we're the only ones with this power, others will fear us. If we share the responsibility, we build trust. But sharing knowledge came with risks. Not every species had good intentions. There were some who studied human technology looking for weaknesses, some who wanted that power for themselves. Engineer Huang Jisoo discovered one such plot. A group of traders from a species called the Dexar were buying components that matched human shield generators. When he investigated further, he found they were trying to reverse engineer human technology. He reported it to Ambassador Kim Taejin, who brought it before the Galactic Council. The Dexar representatives claimed it was just scientific curiosity, but the evidence suggested they were building weapons. "This is why we can't share everything," President Kang Sora said during an emergency session on Earth. "Some species aren't ready for this technology. Some would use it to harm others. But if we hold too much back, we're just as much a threat," argued one of her advisors. "We need to find balance." They decided on a compromise. Basic defensive technology would be shared with trustworthy species. Advanced weapons systems would remain human-only for now. And any species caught trying to steal or reverse engineer protected technology would face immediate sanctions. The Dexar accepted the ruling, but the incident reminded everyone that the new peace was fragile. A year after Yuna's death, something unexpected happened. Deep space probes detected signals from outside known space. The patterns were clearly artificial, but they didn't match any known species. Someone new was out there watching. Admiral Choi Damon called an emergency meeting of Earth's defense leadership. "We always knew this possibility existed. The ruins on Mars warned that we weren't alone with the current galactic species. There are older things in deep space. Should we be concerned?" President Kang Sora asked. "We should be prepared," the Admiral replied. "We revealed our strength to deal with the Kren. That might have attracted attention from something bigger." Fleet Commander Nam Sunwoo began moving elements of the Ghost Armada to new positions, creating a defensive perimeter around human space. Other species noticed the movement and asked questions. "We detected unusual signals," Ambassador Kim Taejin explained to the Galactic Council. "We don't know what they mean, but we're taking precautions. We recommend all species do the same." The Council took the warning seriously. If humanity was worried about something, it was worth worrying about, but the signals didn't lead to invasion or attack. Instead, 3 months later, a single ship arrived at the edge of the galaxy. It transmitted a simple message in hundreds of languages. "We are the Ancients. We wish to speak." President Kang Sora, Admiral Choi Damin, and Ambassador Kim Taejin met with the representatives of the Ancients on neutral ground. The beings were unlike anything they had encountered before. Creatures of energy and thought, barely physical at all. "We left the ruins on Mars," the lead ancient explained, its voice resonating directly in their minds. "We leave such things for young species, to help them survive their dangerous years. You found our warnings and our weapons. You used them wisely. You were testing us," Kang Sora realized. "Not testing, preparing. The galaxy goes through cycles. Sometimes the strong oppress the weak. Sometimes war consumes everything. We left tools for those who might break the cycle." "You did. What happens now?" Admiral Choi Damon asked. "Now you join the older community," the ancient replied. "Species that have proven they can be trusted with power. We watch the galaxy from the shadows. We intervene only when necessary. You've shown you can police yourselves and others. That makes you valuable allies." The ancients offered knowledge, technology even more advanced than what humans had found on Mars, but they also offered something more important: guidance. They had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. Their wisdom could help humanity avoid the mistakes others had made. "We accept," President Kang Sora said, "but we do this on our terms. We won't become your servants or soldiers." The ancient's form rippled with what might have been amusement. "We wouldn't want you to. Servants are useless. We need partners who think for themselves." Word of humanity's contact with the ancients spread across the galaxy. It explained so much: where the human fleet came from, how they advanced so quickly. They had help from beings older than any known civilization. Some species felt relieved. Others felt threatened. But all of them understood that the galaxy had changed permanently. The rules were different now. Strength still mattered, but it had to be balanced with justice. Violence had consequences. Innocents were protected. Captain Lee Minho stood in the memorial garden on Harmony's Gate Station. More than a year had passed since Yuna's death. Commander Thulrock ran. For the first time in his long military career, the decorated Kren warrior knew fear. He moved from system to system, trading passage on smuggler ships and hiding in the darkest corners of the galaxy. Every day brought news of his empire's humiliation at human hands. He sat in a dingy bar on a frontier world, watching the news broadcasts. The Ghost Armada now controlled all major Kren military installations. Trade routes were shut down. The once proud empire was on its knees, and all because of him. Because he had struck down a small human child in a moment of anger. "You're him, aren't you?" Thulrock looked up. A Vrel merchant stood nearby, multiple eyes studying him carefully. "I don't know what you mean." "The Kren commander. The one the humans hunt." The Vrel clicked its mandibles thoughtfully. "There's a reward. Not money. The humans offer technology, trade agreements, favorable treaties. Any species that helps capture you will earn humanity's gratitude." Thulrock's hand moved to his weapon, but he stopped. What would be the point? He couldn't fight the entire galaxy. "Are you going to turn me in?" The Vrel made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "I haven't decided. But you should know there's nowhere left to run. Every species wants to be on humanity's good side now. You're worth too much to hide." After the Vrel left, Thulrock sat alone with his thoughts. His entire life he had believed in Kren's strength. Might made right. The strong ruled, the weak served. Now he understood the flaw in that philosophy. Eventually you meet someone stronger, and humanity had proven they were stronger. 3 days later, Thulrock made his decision. He contacted the Kren High Command and gave them his location. Supreme Leader Corvin personally led the retrieval team. When they found Thulrock, the old commander looked at the disgraced warrior with disgust. "You destroyed our empire for your pride," Corvin said. "I struck an enemy," Thulrock replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "You murdered a child who offered you friendship," Corvin corrected, "and now we all pay the price. The humans are waiting for you. We're taking you to them." The transfer happened in neutral space. The Ghost Armada sent a single ship to collect the prisoner. Captain Lee Minho volunteered to be on that ship. He needed to see the being who killed his daughter. Thulrock was brought aboard in restraints. The massive Kren warrior who had once seemed so powerful now looked small and defeated. When he saw Captain Minho waiting for him, he stopped. "You're the father," Thulrock said. Minho nodded, not trusting himself to speak. "I didn't mean to kill her," Thulrock said. "It was an accident." "You meant to hurt someone," Minho replied, his voice cold. "You struck out in anger at a being you considered beneath you. That she died was the consequence of your actions, not an accident." Thulrock had no answer for that. The trial was held on Harmony's Gate Station, where the crime occurred. The Galactic Council agreed to recognize human jurisdiction, not out of respect for law, but out of fear of what humanity might do if they refused. Species from across the galaxy sent representatives to observe. Everyone wanted to see what justice looked like when humanity demanded it. Ambassador Kim Tae-jin served as prosecutor. The evidence was clear and undisputed. Video recordings showed everything. Thulrock didn't deny what he had done. His only defense was that he hadn't intended to kill the child. Intent matters under Kren law, his defense attorney argued, a Torvin who had volunteered for the thankless task. Commander Thulrock never intended lethal force. Kim Tae-jin stood and addressed the judges, a panel of 3 humans who had been appointed by President Kang Sora. Intent to kill is not required under Earth law when the perpetrator knows their actions could cause death. Commander Thulrock knew his strength could harm the child. He struck anyway. That makes him responsible for the result. Captain Lee Minho was called to testify. He sat in the witness box looking across the courtroom at the being who killed Yuna. The prosecutor asked him about his daughter, and Minho spoke quietly about the little girl who loved drawing pictures of aliens holding hands. She believed the galaxy could be a good place, Minho said. She wanted everyone to be friends. That hope died with her. Thulrock looked away, unable to meet the father's eyes. The trial lasted 3 days. On the 3rd day, the judges returned with their verdict. Chief Judge Park Sun-mi read it aloud. The tribunal finds Commander Thulrock guilty of second-degree murder. The sentence is life imprisonment under human custody. Thulrock sagged in his restraints. Under Kren law, death in battle was honorable. Living out his days in a human prison was worse than execution. But he accepted the sentence without protest. As guards led Thulrock away, he paused near Captain Minho. "Your daughter offered me friendship. I repaid her with violence. I don't ask forgiveness. I ask only that you believe me when I say I carry this burden every moment." Minho looked at him for a long moment. "Good. You should." With Thulrock in custody, President Kang Sora addressed the Galactic Council. The entire galaxy watched the broadcast. "We came to space 50 years ago with hope," she said. "We wanted to join the community of intelligent species, to trade and learn and grow together. We brought our children to your stations and your worlds because we believed we were safe. That belief was shattered when Commander Thulrock killed Yuna Lee." She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "We responded with overwhelming force. We revealed weapons and technology that we had hidden for decades. Some of you are afraid of us now. Good, you should be. But understand this. We don't want conquest. We don't want empire. We want peace, but not at any price." The image behind her changed to show a memorial being built on Harmony's gate station. A statue of a small girl in a blue dress, holding out a drawing tablet. "This will be a reminder," President Kang Sora continued. "A reminder that innocents are not acceptable casualties. That children deserve protection. That peace requires strength, not just treaties. We will enforce this principle. Any species that harms innocents will face consequences. But we're not monsters," she added. "We're not conquerors. Species that respect the rights of others have nothing to fear from humanity. We offer the same things we always have. Trade, cooperation, friendship. The Ghost Armada will remain active, but we hope we'll never need to use it again." After the broadcast, Admiral Choi Damon met with Fleet Commander Nam Sunwoo aboard Sleeping Dragon. The massive fleet was preparing to return to the Oort cloud, back to the darkness where they had waited for so long. "You did well," the Admiral said. "Surgical strikes, minimal casualties beyond military targets. You proved we could use overwhelming power with restraint." Nam Sunwoo looked tired. "We destroyed hundreds of ships, Admiral. Thousands of Kren died. It doesn't feel like restraint." "Because you have a conscience," Choi Demon replied. "That's why you were chosen to command. A person who enjoys this kind of power would be dangerous. A person who understands the weight of it is necessary. Will we have to do this again? I hope not. But if we do, the fleet will be ready." On Earth, a massive ceremony was held to honor Yuna Lee. Her body was buried in a garden that would become a memorial park. Thousands attended, and millions more watched from across the planet. Captain Lee Minho stood at his daughter's grave, speaking to her one last time. "They heard you, sweetheart," he whispered. "Your message about friendship, about choosing peace over violence. The galaxy heard it. Maybe they had to hear it the hard way, but they heard it." He placed a drawing on her grave marker. It was the picture she had been making when she died, showing different aliens holding hands. Someone had preserved it from the station's floor. Now it would rest with her forever. Engineer Huang Jisoo returned to his work on the Torvan homeworld. His colleagues treated him differently now. They knew he was human, but they didn't know what that meant anymore. Were humans the peaceful merchants they seemed, or the terrifying warriors they proved to be? "We're both," Jisoo told them. "That's what you need to understand. We can be your friends or your enemies. You get to choose which by how you treat us." Kristar, his Torvan friend, pulsed with understanding colors. Perhaps that's the lesson Yuna Lee taught the galaxy. That kindness should be met with kindness, but cruelty will be answered with strength. "That's a better way of saying it than I managed," Jisoo agreed. The Kren Empire began the slow process of rebuilding. Their military was shattered, their pride broken. Supreme Leader Korvan issued a formal apology to humanity and changed Kren law to hold military personnel accountable for harm to innocents. It wouldn't bring back those who died, but it was a start. Dr. Park Hana continued her work on Harmony's gate station. The memorial to Yuna Lee stood in the main plaza now where everyone could see it. She often saw alien children leaving drawings and flowers at its base. The girl who wanted everyone to be friends had become a symbol of innocence throughout the galaxy. But not everyone saw the events as justice served. In the darker corners of space, there were those who watched humanity's display of power with different intentions. Some saw opportunity, some saw threat. And some, the very old and very dangerous, saw something that awakened ancient fears. The Vortan barrier hung in space like a wall of death. 500 weapon platforms, each the size of a small moon, orbited in a defensive grid. Behind them waited 3 Kren battle fleets, over 800 warships ready to defend their empire. War Master Krell stood on the bridge of his flagship Eternal Conquest, confident that no force could breach this defense. "They're approaching," his sensor officer reported. "Contact in 30 minutes. Krell studied the tactical display. The human fleet showed as thousands of contacts moving in a formation he didn't recognize. Interesting. They're not even trying to hide their numbers. Overconfidence will be their downfall. Should we hail them, War Master? No, Krell said. The time for talking ended when they threatened the Kren Empire. Target their lead ships the moment they enter weapons range. We'll tear through them quickly and then push on to their homeworld. They need to learn their place. The Ghost Armada emerged from hyperspace exactly where Fleet Commander Nam Sunwoo planned. The Vortan barrier stretched before them, weapons already charging for the opening salvo. On the bridge of Sleeping Dragon, Captain Lee Minho watched the defensive positions with a tactical eye. They're positioned well, classic Kren doctrine. Heavy firepower concentrated on the approaches. They expect us to charge straight in. Nam Sunwoo nodded. That's what they trained for, that's what they expect. He turned to his weapons officer. Activate the hammer protocols. Hammer protocols active, Commander. What happened next changed warfare in the galaxy forever. The human ships didn't charge forward. Instead, they simply stopped. Then space itself seemed to tear open around them. Portals of blue energy formed, thousands of them, surrounding the Kren defensive positions. What is that? Krell demanded, staring at the impossible sight. Report. Unknown technology, War Master. The portals they're opening inside our defensive perimeter. Through each portal, massive projectiles emerged. Not energy weapons or missiles, but solid rounds of dense metal accelerated to impossible speeds. The Kren called them hammers, and the name fit. Each projectile carried the kinetic energy of a small asteroid. The weapon platforms didn't have time to adjust their fire. The hammers struck them at relativistic speeds, and the platforms simply exploded. One after another, the defensive stations that had protected the Kren Empire for 500 years were torn apart in minutes. All platforms reporting critical damage, the tactical officer shouted. 70% destroyed, the rest disabled. Krell gripped his command chair. How? How did they do that? But there was no time for questions. The human fleet began moving forward, and now their main weapons came online. Energy beams of a type the Kren had never encountered sliced through shields and armor like they were paper. Kren warships that had survived dozens of battles exploded after just a few hits. All fleets return fire, Krell ordered. Concentrate on their flagship. The Kren fleet unleashed everything they had. Thousands of missiles, energy cannons, and plasma torpedoes filled space with deadly fire. The human shields absorbed it all. The advanced technology from those ancient Mars ruins made human defenses stronger than anything the current galaxy could produce. Admiral Choi Demon watched from his command post on Earth, receiving real-time updates. The battle was unfolding exactly as the simulations predicted. The Kren were brave, but they were fighting technology they couldn't match. Our shields are holding at 93%, the tactical officer reported. Enemy fire is ineffective against our defensive screens. President Kang Sora stood beside the admiral, watching the battle display. How many casualties? On our side? None so far, Madam President. Kren casualties are severe. Kang Sora's face remained neutral, but her eyes showed pain. This is what it takes to make them understand. Continue the operation. Back at the Vortan barrier, the battle had become a slaughter. Kren ships tried to retreat, but the human fleet had surrounded them. Nam Sunwoo's voice came over the fleet-wide channel, calm and cold. All Kren vessels, power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any ship that continues fighting will be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to comply. War Master Krell stared at his tactical display. In less than an hour, the Kren Empire had lost the Vortan barrier and 3 complete battle fleets. Nearly 1,000 ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans hadn't lost a single vessel. War Master, what are your orders? His executive officer asked quietly. Krell's hands shook. His entire life he had known the Kren to be the strongest military power in the galaxy. Now that certainty was shattered. Power down weapons, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Prepare for boarding. Human Marines in powered armor teleported directly onto Kren ships. The Kren warriors tried to fight, but the human armor made them nearly invincible. Within minutes, every ship in the Kren fleet was under human control. Captain Lee Minho watched the operation from Sleeping Dragon's bridge. He felt empty inside, watching ships explode and lives end. Each Kren death should have satisfied his need for revenge, but it didn't. Nothing could bring Yuna back. Captain Lee, a communications officer, called out, "We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Kim Taejin wants to speak with you." Minho took the call. Kim Taejin appeared on the screen, looking exhausted. "Captain Lee, the Council is in chaos. 6 different species have offered to mediate a peace agreement. They're terrified of what happens next." "What does Earth want from me?" Minho asked. "President Kang Sora wants your opinion. You're the one who lost your daughter. How far should we go?" Minho looked out at the debris field that used to be the Kren's greatest defense. "I want Thulrak. I want him to face justice for what he did. I want the Kren to understand that killing innocents has consequences." "And after we have Thulrak?" "I don't know," Minho admitted. "Minho, I'm a merchant captain, not a warlord. I can't make decisions for all of humanity." Kim Taejin nodded. "That's honest. For what it's worth, Captain, the whole galaxy is watching now. They see what happens when humans are pushed too far. Maybe that's what we needed. Maybe Yuna's death, as horrible as it is, will save countless other innocents in the future." The transmission ended. Minho stood alone with his thoughts. The Ghost Armada didn't stop at the Vorton barrier. They pushed deeper into Kren space, dismantling military installations one by one. The Kren High Command tried to organize a defense, but every fleet they sent was destroyed or captured within hours. On the 5th day of the campaign, the human fleet reached the Kren homeworld. The massive planet filled the view screens, home to 15 billion Kren citizens. Orbital defense platforms surrounded it, but they were already powering down, knowing they couldn't stop the human ships. Nam Sunwoo stood on the bridge of Sleeping Dragon, looking at the planet below. This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. What they did next would be remembered forever. "Commander, we have a communication from the Kren High Command," the communications officer reported. "They're requesting terms of surrender." "Put them through." The face that appeared on screen was old for a Kren, skin wrinkled and eyes tired. This was Supreme Leader Corvin, the head of the Kren government. "Commander Nam Sunwoo, I am prepared to discuss terms." "There's only one term," Nam Sunwoo said. "Surrender Commander Thulrak to human custody. Immediately." Corvin's eyes flickered with something that might have been shame. "Thulrak has fled. He knew this day would come. We don't know where he is." "Then you have 1 week to find him," Nam Sunwoo said. "For every day he remains free, we will disable one of your orbital stations. If he's not surrendered within 1 week, we will blockade your entire empire. No trade, no travel, nothing. You'll be isolated until he's brought to justice." "That will cripple our economy," Corvin protested. "Then I suggest you find him quickly." Nam Sunwoo ended the transmission. Across the galaxy, species that had watched the Kren Empire with fear for centuries saw them brought low. The Torvin Council sent a message of support to Earth. The Vrel Collective offered to help hunt Thulrak. Even the mysterious Nethir, who rarely involved themselves in galactic politics, acknowledged that justice was being served. But there were others who watched with different eyes. In the shadows of galactic civilization, older and more dangerous powers began to pay attention to humanity. The ancient ruins on Mars hadn't been left there by accident. There were forces in the galaxy that remembered the civilization that built them, and they had questions about how humanity had awakened that old technology. On Harmony's gate station, Dr. Park Hana watched the news reports with mixed feelings. The Kren were getting what they deserved, but the scale of destruction troubled her. She had dedicated her life to healing, not warfare. A figure appeared beside her at the observation window. Engineer Huang Jisoo had returned to the station. "It's hard to watch, isn't it?" he said quietly. "We've become what we always feared," Hana said, "a military power that imposes its will through force." "No," Jisoo disagreed. "We're not conquering anyone. We're not taking territory. We're demanding justice for a murdered child. There's a difference. Is there? How many Kren have died for Thulrok's crime? Only the ones who chose to fight, Jisoo said. Every ship that surrendered was spared. Every station that powered down its weapons was left intact. The Kren Empire had stood for 3,000 years. Their military controlled 70 star systems and commanded fleets that made other species tremble. When news of the human ultimatum reached the Kren High Command, they laughed. 72 hours, War Master Krell read from the transmission. The humans demand we surrender Commander Thulrok for trial, or they will consider it an act of war. The other commanders around the war table joined in his laughter. General Vok slammed his fist on the table. What will they do? Send their cargo ships to throw trade goods at us? On the view screen, Ambassador Kim Taijin from Earth delivered the message to the Galactic Council. He stood straight in his formal suit, his face showing no emotion. Commander Thulrok killed an innocent child. We gave him 72 hours to surrender himself for justice. That deadline has now passed. A Torvan Council member, whose crystalline body flickered with concern, spoke up. Ambassador, please reconsider. The Kren military is vast. Humanity has only been in space for 50 years. This path leads only to your destruction. Kim Taijin's expression didn't change. That is no longer your concern. Earth has made its decision. We are withdrawing our ambassador from this council. Any species that aids the Kren Empire will be considered hostile. Any species that remains neutral will be left alone. Choose wisely. He turned and walked out of the council chamber. Behind him, dozens of species began arguing frantically about what this meant. On Harmony's gate station, Captain Lee Minho sat alone in the chapel, where they had held a small ceremony for Yuna. Her body was being transported back to Earth, but he couldn't bring himself to leave yet. This was the last place his daughter had been alive and happy. The door opened. Admiral Choi Damon entered, his uniform crisp and decorated with ribbons from decades of service. He sat down next to Minho without speaking for a long moment. They want you on the flagship, the Admiral finally said. Fleet Commander Nam Sunwoo requested you specifically. He needs someone who understands the Kren tactics, and you've traded with them for years. Minho stared at the small memorial hollow image of Yuna floating before the altar. I'm a merchant captain. You're also the father of the girl they murdered, Choi Daemin said quietly. And you have a right to be there when we make them answer for it. Minho's jaw tightened. What is the Ghost Armada, Admiral? That message you sent back mentioned ships I've never heard of. Choi Daemin sighed. 50 years ago, when we first reached Mars, we found something. Ancient ruins, technology from a civilization millions of years old. They left behind warnings and weapons. They warned that new species always face a test when they enter the galaxy. That stronger older species will push them, hurt them, try to make them submit. So we built weapons, Minho said. We built the biggest secret in human history, the Admiral confirmed. While we sent out merchant ships and diplomats, we also built warships. Thousands of them, hidden in the Oort cloud where no one would look. We hoped we'd never need them. And now they're on their way to Kren space, and we want you there to help guide them. In the Kren Empire's capital system, military ships assembled in defensive formations. Intelligence reports were coming in that confused the Kren commanders. Their deep space sensors detected something moving toward their territory, but the readings made no sense. There are too many contacts, Sensor Chief Drog reported to War Master Krell. Our equipment must be malfunctioning. It shows thousands of ships. Obviously a sensor error. Krell waved it off. Humanity has perhaps 200 military vessels total in their entire fleet. Send a patrol group to investigate. 6 cruisers should be enough to destroy whatever they're sending. The 6 Kren cruisers jumped into hyperspace, heading toward the anomalous readings. Each cruiser carried enough firepower to level a small city. They were confident and prepared for an easy victory. They never made it back. The Kren patrol group dropped out of hyperspace in an empty sector of space. Immediately, their sensors went wild with contacts. Ships appeared all around them, dropping stealth fields that had made them invisible. Commander Wrath, leading the patrol, stared at his tactical display in disbelief. All ships, battle stations. We are surrounded by... He stopped, unable to process what he was seeing. How many are there? His tactical officer's voice shook. 247 contacts, Commander. All reading as military vessels. Their technology signatures are unknown. The human ships didn't bother with warnings or demands for surrender. They simply opened fire. The battle lasted 17 seconds. Weapons that the Kren had never seen before tore through their shields like they weren't there. Energy beams of impossible power cut the cruisers into pieces. When it was over, 6 Kren warships had been reduced to debris and the human fleet hadn't even slowed down. One escape pod managed to get away carrying 3 survivors. They were allowed to flee. The humans wanted them to carry a message back. When War Master Krell heard the report from the survivors, his face went pale. "This is impossible. No species advances this far in 50 years. The survivors are certain," his intelligence officer said. They counted nearly 250 ships, and that was just the vanguard. Long-range scans now show thousands more behind them. "War Master, where did humanity get this fleet?" Krell pulled up tactical maps of Kren territory. "How long until they reach our borders?" "At their current speed, 14 hours. Activate all defense stations. Recall the 1st and 3rd fleets from the outer territories. We'll meet them at the Vortown barrier with everything we have." Across the galaxy, other species watched in shock as reports spread. The peaceful humans, the merchants and diplomats that everyone thought were weak, had just destroyed 6 Kren cruisers without losing a single ship. On a Torvan trading world, Engineer Huang Jisu, a human who had lived among the crystalline beings for 5 years, watched the news reports. His Torvan colleagues looked at him with new eyes filled with fear and confusion. "Jisu, we thought we knew your people," his friend Kristar said, its body pulsing with distressed colors. "How did you hide such power?" Jisu set down his tools. "We didn't hide power. We hid fear. Humans studied your histories, all of you. We learned that every new species that enters the galaxy gets tested. The strong ones survive. The weak ones become servants or disappear. We decided we wouldn't be weak even if we had to pretend to be. But so much violence for one child." "It wasn't just one child," Jisu interrupted, his voice hard. "It was the principle. If we let them kill our children without responding, then we're saying it's acceptable. We're saying humans can be hurt without consequences. The galaxy needed to learn that we can't." The Ghost Armada continued its journey toward Kren space. Aboard the flagship Sleeping Dragon, Captain Lee Minho stood on the bridge looking at the tactical display showing thousands of warships moving in perfect formation. Fleet Commander Nam Sunwoo approached him. Nam Sunwoo was younger than Minho expected for someone commanding such a force. He was only 35, but his eyes held the weight of someone who had spent 10 years in the darkness of the Oort cloud, preparing for a war he hoped would never come. "Captain Lee," Nam Sunwoo said formally, "I'm sorry for your loss. Your daughter deserved better than what this galaxy gave her." Minho nodded, unable to speak. "We need your knowledge of Kren tactics and culture," the fleet commander continued. "You've traded with them for years. You know how they think." "They think strength is everything," Minho said quietly. "They respect only power. Mercy is weakness to them. Diplomacy is cowardice." "Then we'll speak the only language they understand," Nam Sunwoo said. He turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to the Kren High Command." Wide broadcast, all channels. The message was simple and direct. "This is Fleet Commander Nam Sunwoo of the Earth Defense Forces. You killed Yuna Lee, an innocent child guilty of nothing but offering friendship. You laughed at our pain. You refused to face justice. Now you will face us. Evacuate your military stations. We are coming." In the Kren capital, War Master Krell read the message and made his decision. They want to threaten us? Let them come. We'll show these humans what real military power looks like. Activate the Vortown barrier defenses. When their fleet arrives, we'll destroy them all. The Vortown barrier was the Kren Empire's greatest defensive installation. Hundreds of weapon platforms orbiting a strategic choke point, supported by 3 full battle fleets. Nothing had ever broken through it in 500 years. But the Vortown barrier had never faced humanity's sleeping dragons. The space station called Harmony's Gate floated peacefully in the neutral zone between star systems. Ships from dozens of worlds docked at its ports every day. Inside the massive station, beings of all shapes and sizes traded goods, shared stories, and tried to live together in peace. The station had been a symbol of cooperation for 20 years. Captain Lee Minho walked through the busy marketplace with his daughter Yuna by his side. The 8-year-old girl held her father's hand tightly, her eyes wide with wonder at the strange creatures around them. She pointed at a tall crystalline being that sparkled like a diamond in the light. "Papa, look at that one," Yuna whispered excitedly. Minho smiled down at his daughter. That's a Torvin, sweetheart. They're made of living crystal. They were here for an important meeting. Minho commanded a merchant ship called Soul's Promise, and today he would sign a new trade agreement with the Vrel Collective, an insectoid species that controlled valuable mining operations. The meeting was supposed to be simple and peaceful. Dr. Park Hana, the station's human medical officer, waved at them from across the plaza. She had been stationed here for 3 years and knew everyone. Good morning, Captain. Little Yuna, you're getting so tall. Yuna beamed at the compliment. She wore her favorite blue dress, the one her mother had made before passing away 2 years ago. Minho had brought his daughter on this trip because he wanted her to see that the galaxy could be a good place, despite losing her mother to illness. The meeting hall was filled with delegates from various species. The air smelled strange, a mixture of different atmospheres and alien biology. Minho took his seat at the negotiation table, while Yuna sat quietly nearby, drawing pictures on her tablet. The Vrel representative, a being with multiple arms and large compound eyes, chittered pleasantly. Through the translator device, its voice came out smooth and friendly. Captain Minho, we are pleased to finalize this arrangement. Your people are fair traders. Just as Minho reached for the digital contract, the doors burst open. Heavy footsteps echoed through the hall. Everyone turned to see a group of Kren warriors march into the room. The Kren were massive creatures standing nearly 8 feet tall with thick gray skin and powerful muscles. They wore armor decorated with the marks of military conquest. Leading them was Commander Tulrock, a decorated war hero of the Kren Empire. His reputation was well known across the galaxy. He had destroyed entire colonies that refused to surrender to Kren authority. This meeting is suspended, Thulrock announced, his voice booming. The Kren Empire has prior claim to the trade routes discussed here. Minho stood slowly, keeping his voice calm. Commander? With respect, the routes through the Cygnus sector were discovered by human survey teams. The treaties are clear. Thulrock's eyes narrowed. Treaties written by weak species mean nothing. Humanity has been in space for only 50 years. You are children playing at galactic politics. The room fell silent. Station security guards moved nervously near the walls, but everyone knew they couldn't stop a Kren battle group if violence erupted. We don't want conflict, Minho said carefully, but we won't surrender rights to territories we discovered and developed. Thulrock stepped closer, towering over the human captain. You refuse the Kren Empire. I uphold the law, Minho replied. Little Yuna, frightened by the large alien's angry voice, ran to her father's side. She clutched his leg, peeking out at the massive warrior. Papa, Tulrock looked down at the small human child. This is what sends representatives to speak with empires. Weak creatures who bring their offspring to important meetings. My daughter is here to learn about peaceful cooperation, Minho said, placing a protective hand on Yuna's shoulder. Learn? Thulrock laughed, a harsh sound. Let me teach you about power. What happened next took only seconds. But those seconds changed the entire galaxy. Yuna, trying to calm the situation like she had seen her father do many times, stepped forward. She held out her drawing tablet, showing a picture she had made of different aliens holding hands. We can be friends, she said in her small voice. Thulrock looked at the offered tablet with disgust. He raised one massive hand and swatted it away, but his hand didn't stop at the tablet. His armored fist struck the little girl with terrible force. Yuna flew backward and hit the floor hard. She didn't move again. The room froze in absolute horror. Minho rushed to his daughter, dropping to his knees beside her small body. He pulled her into his arms, his hands shaking. Yuna? Yuna, sweetheart, wake up! Dr. Park Hana ran forward with her medical equipment, but after one look, her face went pale. She checked for vital signs, her own hands trembling. After a long moment, she looked up at Captain Minho and slowly shook her head. The little girl in the blue dress was dead. Minho's face went blank. He sat there holding his daughter, rocking slowly back and forth. No tears came. No screams, just terrible absolute silence. Thulrock looked at his hand as if surprised. It was an accident. The creature was too fragile. This is not the Kren's fault. A Torvin security officer, made of living crystal that now pulsed with distressed colors, moved forward. Commander Thulrock, you are under arrest for murder. The Kren warriors immediately formed a protective circle around their commander. Thulrock laughed. You would arrest a Kren commander for the accidental death of a lesser being? Do you want war? The station administrator, a floating gaseous being of the Nethir species, spoke urgently. Please, everyone remain calm. Let us not turn tragedy into catastrophe. But Minho was no longer listening to the political discussion happening around him. He carefully laid his daughter's body down and stood. His face remained empty of expression, but his eyes had changed. They held something cold and final. He walked to the communication panel and entered his security codes. Then he recorded a message, his voice steady and quiet. This is Captain Lee Minho of the merchant vessel Soul's Promise. Authentication code Alpha 77 Omega. Message is classified and encrypted for Earth Defense Command. Direct to Admiral Choi Demon. They have killed our child. The line is crossed. Recommend Protocol Omega activation. Minho out? He sent the message, then turned back to cradle his daughter's body. The message traveled through space, jumping from relay to relay until it reached Earth. At Defense Command headquarters, buried deep beneath the surface of the planet, alarms began to sound. Admiral Choi Demon read the message 3 times. His face grew hard as stone. He had hoped this day would never come. For 50 years, humanity had hidden its greatest secret from the galaxy. They had played the role of peaceful merchants and careful diplomats. But they had prepared for this possibility. He opened a secure channel to the office of the president. President Kang Sora was in a meeting when the priority alert came through. She read the report about what happened to Yuna Lee, and her hands clenched into fists. She looked at her advisors gathered around the table. Activate Protocol Omega, she said quietly. Bring our daughter home. Make them understand what they have done. In the Oort cloud, far beyond the planets of Earth's solar system, thousands of objects began to receive signals. For decades they had floated in the darkness, disguised as ice and rock. Now they stirred to life. These were not merchant ships. They were not exploration vessels. They were warships built from technology that humanity had discovered in ancient ruins on Mars. Technology that the rest of the galaxy didn't know existed. The Ghost Armada was waking up. Fleet Commander Nam Sunwoo sat in the command chair of the flagship Sleeping Dragon. He had been stationed out here for 10 years, waiting for orders that might never come. Now they had. All ships report ready status, his operations officer reported. Nam Sunwoo looked at the tactical display showing thousands of warships ready to move. He thought about a little girl in a blue dress who would never go home. He thought about what humanity was about to unleash on the galaxy. Set course for the Kren Empire, he ordered. Maximum speed. The sleeping dragons have been called. Heaven help them all.